go. This is the 14th year I've done the top 10 marketing moments. And almost, I think, from the very start, I was doing it with Sherilyn and the Marketing Academy in the old fashioned way to begin with in lecture theatres. And we did it once at the Sydney Opera House, I think. So this year, again, as usual, the plan is very simple. These are my 10 big marketing moments and what we can learn from them in descending. Or anyway, we'll start with number 10 and we'll get to number 1. And at the end, there's chance for a bit of a Q&A, whatever the hell you want to talk about. Let's start with number 10, Coke's Christmas Turkey. So as you probably know, Coca-Cola have taken their 14-year-old Holidays Are Coming ad, and this year they've given it a little bit of an AI vibe using 3 different artificial intelligence, 4 actually firms. So let's have a look at the AI version of Holidays Are Coming, and then we'll talk about the response to it. Here we go. So there we go. I mean, it's not bad. If one of the ducklings has one leg and the wheels are going in the wrong direction and stuff. But generally speaking, not bad by AI standards 2024. But Campaign Magazine, the beloved Bible of the advertising industry, really took exception to it about a week ago. They christened it its Turkey of the Week, said the warmth and humanity had been sucked out of it. There was no discernible story. It was soulless. So basically, it was the worst ad of the week. But there's a problem, right? Which is several firms, most notably System 1, are now pre-testing these ads among representative samples of target consumers using pretty advanced methodologies that are certainly more advanced than Campaign getting one of its journos to go, oh, I don't like that, right? And to the point, it turns out that ad did very, very well. It scored incredibly highly, 5.9 on a 6-point scale. System 1 predicts it will do a very good job of building brands. And of course, in the poker game of marketing, if you've got the data, then you're always going to pull the ace of spades and you're always going to win the hand. So it's an interesting moment here. And it was kind of like Campaign expected to look foolish. So they also had a go at System 1 while having a go at Coke's ad. And they said, but look, you don't need to listen to Campaign. System 1 research has already given this ad maximum marks, along with 9 other Christmas ads this year. It's standard in British universities to never give anyone more than 90% because an essay simply cannot be that perfect. But advertising has been cracked, solved, and these films are as good as is humanly possible. Well, either that or there's an issue with someone's system. So not content with getting it wrong over Coke's entirely acceptable brand building ad and calling it a turkey, Campaign are also having a big old crack at System 1 and hinting in a kind of shitty way that there's something wrong with System 1's assessment approach. So I think Campaign are on a very dodgy footing here for 3 particular reasons. First, you know, the most important thing in marketing, market orientation, you cannot stand up and say this is shit if we've got data from the target market saying it's not shit. And it's the age-old thing. All of us work in marketing. We are not consumers. Therefore, we need to shut up and remember that because our perspective isn't just incorrect. It's wildly biased, yeah? And everything from brand purpose to the lack of focus on saliency to too long positioning statements all come out of the fact that we forget we're not the consumer. So that's the first error. The second error, and we'll talk about this more in the top 10 in a moment, there seems to be this wide theme from campaign that this is an old ad and it isn't anything new. Again, campaign is wrong here. There's a clear direction that's only just emerging that old is better than new, and I'll talk about that later. But most importantly, you can't have a go at pre-testing, okay? So let's be clear about why that is. So in my career, for about 25 years, I've worked for two different types of marketing director when it comes to pre-testing, both equally brilliant. So the first CMO will say to me, I trust my agency, I've done the research, I have a strategy, and now I've briefed that strategy into my agency. I've done it well, and I trust them to take it from here. Research will kill creativity. It'll stop me producing good work. I don't pre-test. The other marketer had the opposite point of view. She would say, look, I research everything. Why would I not research my biggest single investment? The pre-testing of ads allows me to get buy-in. It speeds things up. I get diagnostic advice. I love pre-testing. And in my career, I've regarded both of them as being correct up until about 3 years ago. The key point missing from campaigns perspective and all of the advertising people on LinkedIn that are kind of critiquing pre-testing is it's totally fucking changed in the last 4 or 5 years. You cannot critique pre-testing using Naughty's arguments that don't apply to modern pre-testing techniques. You're out of date. So what's changed? First of all, digital animatics. So we're able to produce a 30-second South Korean, relatively accurate animated cartoon of what the ad will actually look like. The old days of pre-testing, it was literally a large sheet of paper with a guy behind the cartoon doing the voices, right? So we're now testing much closer to reality. We can recruit from panel data representative samples at a 0.95, 0.5 level of certainty and representation from any target segment you give us. So we're now able to get really accurate consumers rather than a bunch of randos we found on the street. We can use non-verbal assessment techniques to assess emotional response. We're getting the results back in 24 to 36 hours. It costs less than 10 grand, which means if you're spending a decent slab of money on advertising in any market, you want your head examined not to invest a tiny slice of the budget to see whether it's going to work before you make and run the ad. And I'm not involved with System One or Kantar. That, you know, I'm not an employee. I don't get money from them to push their services. But the point is, I was skeptical of this stuff a couple of years ago too. But rather than crapping on about it, I went and did proper research into it. So I went and visited Sky, who are a very advanced British marketing outfit, maybe the most advanced we have. Sky had become believers with System One because they'd done the smart thing. They had a database of their sort of 40 odd ads that had run, and they looked at what it had done for short-term sales and long-term brand building using econometrics. So they said to System One, okay, we'll consider you. These are the 40 ads you've got on your database. You tell us how they would have done just based on your pre-test data, and we'll compare it to what they actually did based on our post-exposure assessment. And to the amazement of Sky, who are not easy people to please, basically Sky said it was bang on the number, and they now spend a very large amount of money with System One. So the point is, we've all got to suck it up. Pre-testing has changed, and it is a complete no-brainer. Number 9, Liquid Death's iconic status. So you may have noticed this, but every fucking marketing table on the planet has a can of Liquid Death on it, right? Every marketing event, they're opening Liquid Death. Every third post on LinkedIn is about Liquid Death. And for me, this is a perfect encapsulation of what's wrong with marketing. So I wrote a Helpful Marketing Week column earlier in the year where I pointed out a few things about Liquid Death. First of all, it's a very nice brand, and that's important because I got a lot of shit about Matt Ritson doesn't think Liquid Death will be successful. I absolutely did not say that. Here's a paragraph from the column basically saying Liquid Death, as you can see, is a fine minor brand with some potential, right? The problem with Liquid Death is it's only doing about $250 million a year in global revenues. Now, that's impressive until you put it up against brands like Coke that do that every 72 hours. It until this year hadn't made a profit. So here's an idea. Let's put brands on the altar that are actually profitable. It is a great little brand. But what this really indicates is the state of marketing. The reason most marketing fanboys love Liquid Death is because they're not really marketers at all. They're just advertising people. So Liquid Death's perfect. It's just a can of water with great advertising. Yeah. And for that reason, my article wasn't critiquing Liquid Death. It was critiquing a marketing community that lionizes brands for having great ads and very little else. So why is that a problem? Well, you know, when we train marketers on mini MBA, we do it in the right way. We start with diagnosis, we move through to strategy, then we work on tactics. And all of these are important contributors to marketing success. But when we get to tactics, we're not really talking about tactics most of the time, because in the original marketing thesis, there were 4 Ps, but there aren't anymore for the most part. We don't have much marketing involvement anymore in product or in pricing or in place distribution. We are more and more exclusively focused not on strategy and diagnosis, and not even on most of the tactics. We're only focused on one of the Ps, the promotional P. And the irony is, while every bloody idiot in marketing has suggested other words beginning with P that we should add to the list of Ps, 3 of the 4 have pissed off and been given to other more able people in the organization, and it's left us bereft. Let me just back that up with data. So this is the survey, the CMO survey done each year on Britain's top 80 CMOs. They do it on a much bigger sample of American CMOs. It's exactly the same results. And as you can see here, this is asking, what does marketing primarily do within a company? Now, obviously at the top there, you'll find brands, digital marketing and advertising. Pretty much most marketing teams are working on. But look at the other 3 Ps. Only a quarter of marketers, and these are big companies, are working on products. Only a fifth work on pricing. And it's almost down to 10% working on distribution. We've got to face reality, yeah, that most marketers aren't marketers. They work in communications. They're not involved in the rest of the marketing suite because we're so busy inventing other words beginning with P, we let our own discipline disappear on us. And it's a tragic turn of events. And Liquid Death is the perfect brand to illustrate the sad old state of marketing right now. Number 8, McDonald's pricing gotcha. So there are 3 things you need to know about pricing, okay? In the most general way. So number 1, it's all about profit. Don't talk about revenues. It's a total fucking distraction. So this is a very fine pen. I could sell it on eBay for about $10, I reckon. I can generate revenue. Who cares? Yeah. This pen cost me $50. Any idiot can generate revenue. But if I want to take a pen that cost me $50 and sell it for $100, that's a different thing. That requires skill. That requires strategy. That requires proper marketing. Yeah. So the first thing is, the only reason we're interested in revenues is they're a carrier drug for profit. Number 2, once you get that point, there's only one lever that really drives profit, and that lever is price. Yeah. So the famous work that was done at Wharton back in the 90s, from the Smart Pricing Unit, looked at about 2,500 different businesses. And they looked at the implications of cutting fixed or variable cost or increasing sales all by 1%. And they did something for profitability. But the key point is, if we can put up prices by 1%, we can drive corporate profitability up an average of 10%. It's not 1% price increase gives us 1% profit increase. That's not how cost structures work, right? I don't think many marketers understand that. That's why they discount so much and kill all profitability. So number 1, it's all about profit. And number 2, if you want profit, it's all about price. Now, number 3, when it gets to price, pricing is all about marketing. Not marketers being in charge of price, but marketers being involved in pricing. Let me explain with the McDonald's example. So if you dig into McDonald's data, you see something truly fascinating, okay? So up at the top here, what you see is that's McDonald's global revenue in US dollars, and beneath it is McDonald's total gross profit, yeah? Now, if we zoom in there, let's go back 10 years. If you look at 2014, you'll notice they did $28 billion of overall revenue and $11 billion of gross profit. That's a lovely ratio. Well done. Fantastic. But if we zoom forward to this year, what we discover is, holy shit, right? McDonald's are projected to do $26 billion of revenue and generate $15 billion of global profit. In other words, revenues have gone down by 7% for the last 10 years, but profits have gone up by 36%. What? What's going on? Well, obviously, gross margin's going up. That's the first point. But why is it going up? And the answer lies in doing pricing properly. Now, notice, I'm not saying price the noun. I'm saying pricing the verb. There is a difference, okay? Price is the thing we stick on our products, which is what they cost to buy. And most marketers assume that comes from Valhalla and we put it out there and it's untouchable. When we embark upon pricing, we realize, although price is part of it, there's a step that precedes and proceeds after price. Namely, first we do price research. Now, let me break it to the 80% of you that are not involved in pricing. The people who are doing your pricing in your company are well-meaning buffoons when it comes to pricing. And I say that with great respect. Because although these finance people dress it all up fancy schmancy, let me tell you the two ways, without any marketers involved, most companies do price research. You ready? It's going to break your heart. Number one, we're going to look at costs, which have really got fuck all to do with the price. And what we're going to do is we're going to work out what our costs are, and then we're going to mark up by a certain proportion, right? That's as dumb as rocks. The other way we could do it is look at competitors' prices and set our price based on competitors' prices. This is also dumb as rocks because usually the competitors we look at aren't competitors. That's a different story. And there's no guarantee our competitors have got this right because they probably set their prices stupidly as well. The right answer is to do price research on consumers using conjoint, trade-off, and Westendorp, all the shit proper marketers are trained in. But unfortunately, most marketers don't do that shit anymore. They just do comms and digital marketing. And most companies don't trust marketers to do the one thing we need, which is research on what consumers would pay to guide the price. Even more important, however, beyond the research is how we communicate the price, frame the price, present the price to consumers. I'm going to say this twice because it's so important. In my journeys around lots of organizations and lots of pricing experience, the one astonishing discovery is the way we communicate a price is more important than the quantitative price itself. Let me say that again. The way we talk about, anchor, frame, communicate the price is more important than the numerical price itself. Imagine a paragraph where the font is more important than what the words say. That's the reality of actual price. Let me illustrate the point with Dan Ariely's famous example from The Economist. And let me do it back to front, okay? Because it's still the great example of what I'm talking about when we talk about framing a price. So many years ago, The Economist offered readers of The Economist two different subscription options. The first option was just get the .com subscription for $59. The other option was you can have the .com subscription and a copy of the magazine delivered to your house for $125. And based on those two options, most consumers, 68% of them, just went for the .com option. When The Economist mistakenly added a third option, and the third option was just the print subscription for $125, which makes no sense because you're already getting it with the print and web subscription. No surprise, nobody went for it. It makes no sense. But by adding that third option, the context of price changed. The frame around the prices changed. And as a result, more people, much more people, were then guided to go down and take the print and web subscription. Now, here's my point. Those dollar amounts didn't change, but the way we presented and framed and showed the prices, relatively speaking, changed everything. And that's what's going on at McDonald's, right? You know, all those fancy, beautiful LED screens that you see on the way into McDonald's and above the people serving you the burgers, and things are moving in and cheeseburgers are moving out and things are flashing up and down and there's a Coke frothing over there. That's a veritable smorgasbord of behavioral economic hand trickery, yeah? Attention cues, decision framing and anchoring, choice architecture that's moving you up and into more profitable places for McDonald's. And they've not been busted. Consumers don't realize this is going on. It's only this year when Finance Buzz said, look, inflation in the US over the last 10 years has gone up 31%. McDonald's prices have literally doubled in the same period of time. And they've doubled because we've been able to use good price anchoring, good price framing, overall price communication to get the consumer to pay more for the same stuff or very similar stuff. Make no mistake, I'm not critiquing McDonald's here, by the way. I think they've done an awesome job. Obviously, now that the economic climate has changed. Number 7, huge for you, consistency at Christmas. So here it is. Behold, the final scores for the British Christmas advertising competition. So this is a Kantar chart. You'll see on the y-axis long-term brand building. You'll see on the x-axis short-term effectiveness. It's the reverse of what System 1 do. But what you see here is very clearly a set of winners that consists of Cadbury, KFC, and Coca-Cola basically smashing it again. But I'm not interested in the brands. I'm interested in the little festive baubles next to the brands, because you'll see there are 3 different colors: red, yellow, and purple. Red baubles, red ads here, are ads that have been run during previous years. The yellow baubles are new ads, but from a continuous or existing campaign. A new ad from Specsavers, for example. And finally, the purple stuff over there are completely new campaigns, new for this year. Now, what you can clearly observe is a hierarchy, yeah? The red stuff, repeat ads, are by far and away the most successful. Then we have new ads from existing campaigns. And finally, we have completely new campaigns. This is a very important finding and turns on its head how most marketing departments think. Because at the end of the day, ads don't get old. If anything, they get more appreciated with time. This comes back to, again, some data System 1 produced last year showing that wear out, the idea that an ad begins to fade in its effectiveness, actually doesn't exist. So they looked at ads that were on their on the y-axis here. This is their star rating. So how well is the ad going to build brand? And they divided up their giant database of more than 40,000 ads in the UK by how many days the ad had been in the market. So, for example, if you look at that first pink box, that's 0 to 49 days. So that's ads that have been out for less than a month and a half. They score on average 2.2. But interestingly, the average score of 2.2 is also recorded for the oldest ads in the market. That's ads that have been in the market for 650 to 7,000 days. That's between 2 and 20 years, yeah? And what's interesting is in between those 2 points is pretty much the same story. It's not declining with age, yeah? It's holding constant. Now, if you have a shit ad from 2022, it's still a shit ad. It's not going to get better or that much better. But my point is, if you've got a good ad, why not keep running it? Because it's still going to work for you. And why take the risk of creating something new? And why spend the money? And I know the answer. It's because you work in marketing and new stuff, right? My job is to make ads, right? New stuff. The reality is completely the opposite. New stuff is not better than old stuff. Old stuff, by and large, wins. Here's a great example of that from Phoenix, the communications consultant firm in the States. What they show is in the 74% of cases where companies withdraw their ad because they just got bored with it, only 1 out of 5 times was the new ad more effective than the ad that they've just replaced it with. 4 times out of 5, the old ad beat the new ad. Again, that rings true with what we've seen. And yet we know marketers want new ads. This all comes back to the great work of Andrew Tyndall, System 1 and the IPA, and this wonderful report that came out last month, The Magic of Compound Creativity. What Tyndall argues is, if you look at how consistent companies are and brands are, you can actually measure it. And when he talks about consistency, what he's saying is three things: consistent positioning, a culture of consistency where we keep the same ads, where we commit to the same media, where we use the same ads, and finally, consistent execution. Same slogan, same brand assets, same tone of voice for many, many years. And if you add that all up together, what you get is a preponderance to go with older ads and much greater effectiveness. Right from the get-go in year one, companies that have more consistent approaches to communications are much more effective. And over 4 or 5 years, as you can see, the effectiveness grows significantly. So what we're saying is it's time to slow down. It's time to appreciate that if you've got a good ad, it's still a good ad, and you don't need to keep producing stuff. And I know of a couple of brands in my universe who've realized this to their advantage. They've doubled down on creative for a particular year, knowing they're going to run that same ad for 2 or 3 years, in which point they can then invest the money that would have gone into new creative into working capital and media. All right, number 6. McCain's IPA Grand Prix win. Les Binet, the dynamic half of the famous Eric Morecambe and Wise combo, Field and Binet, says that this may be the best ever IPA case study of all time. And who would argue with Les? So, to understand why this is a titanic success for McCain frozen chips, you've got to understand just how fucked McCain were about 10 years ago. So we head into this shitty British economy. We've got loads of private label chips being launched left, right, and center. We've got the growth of German discounters who are no friends to premium brands like McCain's frozen chips. And generally, the chip category is getting massively commodified. In response to this, McCain and every other branded producer now commits to the dumbest sin of all, which is basically sales promotions. And if you want a chart that shows you that happening around about the middle of 2014, the arse falls out of McCain's revenues and we're into free fall mode. What makes the next few months and years unusual is McCain do what most brands can't do, which is they step back, they do research, they come up with a new strategy, and they fix things brilliantly, as you'll see. So what happens? It starts with great research and a very clear insight. And the insight is the way that food is shown in the UK, which is, Nigella in a tank top and too much, red lipstick and flickering candlelight going, I'm going to make this for my friends, Penelope and Joanne, when they come round. We'll have such a surprise, It's not how people actually have their tea. British tea is diverse, is practical, is lovely, but it isn't how we're presenting it on television. And so what we get out of that insight is a brilliant piece of positioning for McCain's frozen chips. We'll talk more about the shit show of modern positioning. You're almost certainly got too much positioning for your brand, like most brands. This is what great positioning looks like, yeah? The joyful reality of family tea time. Whew, that's it. McCain are positioning their frozen chips on the joyful reality of family tea time. There's no crazy-ass purpose. There's no brand onion. There's no 7-slide deck. There's just a beautiful encapsulation, which is a very humble thing, right, of what McCain are trying to do. So let's pause. Let's enjoy this ad from DDB, Adam and Eve DDB. This, for those of you that have never worked on brilliant advertising, this is how you fucking do it. Boom!
When it comes to family, how much do we really have in common? There's big differences, small differences, leave and remain kind of differences. There's talkers, listeners, the you never listen to me's. Some are proud, and some are proud of who they've raised. There's cat lovers, Dog people, the mustn't miss a moment kind of people. The screen timers and the digital detoxers. Maybe you have faith or worship at the temple of rock and roll, and you debate your differences over chips and cheeseburgers, or vegan cheeseburgers, which you tuck into at dinner, supper, or tea. Whatever you call it, there's no better time to come together. After all, it's differences that make a family. McCain, we are family.
Now, again, that's just one ad. We've got 10 years of that campaign, and it is a proper campaign across multimedia, again and again, doing the same thing. But what a masterpiece that truly is. And look what it did. So the goal of McCain's campaign is not to sell more chips. The goal was to reduce price sensitivity and initially, at least, therefore, protect McCain's position against private label. And they did it beautifully. Look at the way price sensitivity has fallen by almost half. As a result of that, not only were McCain able to protect their position against private labels and second promotional brands, they're also able to actually begin to charge more. So it's one thing to build brand equity. It's another then to be able to price it and put it into your overall profit matrix. Look at this. Average prices are up by 48%. And finally, as a result of that, sales values increased by 56%. Now, I want you to focus on the y-axis, because the y-axis hasn't got, well, it actually says sales in pounds, but what it should say is fuckloads of money. As a result of the advertising, we're increasing by hundreds of millions of pounds the value of the sale. Yeah. Back to my point about price and profitability, all from phenomenal research, positioning, and ultimately from advertising as well. So what are we seeing here? Proper positioning, not changed every year, tight and focused. What we're seeing is the role that emotion plays in brand building. The divorced lad dropping off his daughter to his separated wife and walking away with the little bag in his hand. That's what we're talking about, right? Beautiful little moments of sadness. We're talking about the right levels of advertising investment. We're talking about then doing it for 10 years consistently with the same brand assets, the same position, the same commitment. And what you're getting at the end of this is what we always want. We're getting salience for McCain coming to mind first, yeah? And then we're getting a strong bit of relative differentiation to build McCain's brand image. Add all that together, and what you get is price insensitivity, yeah? As we see from the charts. And let's be clear what that means, because we don't talk about it enough. How Brands Grow doesn't talk about this enough, right? If I offer you two different bags of frozen chips, one costs you 55p, but then I offer you another one for 45p. You're going to take the 45p one because they're all just commodity bags of frozen chips. That's the point. The reverse is true, though. If I can offer you a brand and you perceive that brand to be different from the commodity, more special, more meaningful, I can not only protect, I can charge more and still maintain my sale. And I think this McCain case is a phenomenal illustration of the absolute power of advertising to do exactly that. Do yourself a favor. Join the IPA, right, for a small amount of money. And then for 25 quid, buy the McCain case study along with thousands of others and learn how the best in our industry are doing it. Don't listen to all the morons who shout loudly on LinkedIn. Follow the genius work of those that truly are delivering the numbers in a quiet way. All right, number 5, Oasis smart pricing. If you live in the UK, you already know this. Oasis, vastly overrated rock and roll band, in my opinion. I saw them at Main Road 20 or 30 odd years ago. You know, I mean, the songs are beautiful. They're beautiful melodies, but let's be honest, they all mean fuck all. If you ever listen to Noel's lyrics, they don't mean anything. It's like, you know, stuff he's read on the side of a chocolate bar. Anyway, not the point. So Oasis have launched 17 new concerts. The Gallagher brothers are getting back together. There was massive interest in this from all kinds of people. The list price was 148 quid. People tuned in on the morning to get their tickets, spent 3 hours in the queue. And when they got to the head of the queue, discovered that there were still tickets, but the price had now more than doubled to on average £355. And they were proper pissed off. So the response to this is fantastically interesting. So Robert Smith, the lead singer of The Cure, who increasingly looks like my nana at Christmas, said it was all a pricing scam, and it was a disgrace, and you should charge 25 quid for a ticket. Robbie Williams, who I far more credit with Robbie, pointed out that I'm going on tour next year and I want to do dynamic pricing. Thank fuck these bastards did it first. So Robbie's like, yeah, this looks all right to me. This is a great way to make more money. The British government, Lisa Nandy, announced that this was incredibly depressing and they were going to launch an investigation into dynamic pricing and concert tickets because, of course, there's nothing else more important to fix in the UK than concert tickets. Clearly, that's the number one priority. And most marketers, much to my, again, disappointment, talked about how Oasis were damaging their brands. They're meant to be working class. The fans wouldn't love them anymore. And it's like, do you have any clue what you're talking about? So, first of all, because all marketers know anything about is sort of brand and reputation, that's all they talk about. Clearly here, there's a trade-off with profit. By my admittedly simple estimation, Oasis, when you take all the other money away for the other partners, made about 200 million quid more thanks to dynamic pricing. My point is they don't care about their reputation, right? They're never reforming again. They don't give a shit. This is retirement, right? They've got an extra 200 million quid from this. They don't care. As marketers, we should love dynamic pricing. It involves segmentation, supply and demand, profit maximization. It's a brilliant way to extract more profit from the marketplace. But again, I wouldn't point to Oasis as being particularly successful because they got the price framing wrong. The way it was presented, the time it took, the behavioral economics of it was all wrong. And that's why they got loads of shit. If you look at how smarter brands like Ryanair use dynamic pricing, there's an art to it which enables them to maximize profitability without pissing anyone off. Number 4, holy shit, Starbucks positioning. All right. So back in 2008, Starbucks had lost their way, which seems to occur on a regular basis, right? So Don Schultz, the legendary CEO, billionaire CEO, got loads of his staff together in various locations and talked to them about their vision of Starbucks and his vision of Starbucks. And they all sat around whiteboards getting all very excited and upset. And eventually they came out with what is undoubtedly the silliest fucking bit of brand positioning in the history of marketing, right? Nothing touches this for complete and utter nonsense, right? So back in 2008, Starbucks brand positioning was to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. Yeah, that's right. Starbucks positioned its brand as inspiring and nurturing the human spirit. Okay, now that's everything that's wrong with positioning, right? It's up itself. It's completely missed the point. It's nonsensical. Why? Well, first of all, it came from staff. You can't talk to staff about positioning, okay? They're not paying for their own coffee, yeah? You don't have to worry about salience with staff. They're staring at a giant 40-foot fucking mermaid for 8 hours a day, right? They're completely unrepresentative of the consumer. And so what we do is we overstate the importance of the brand. Starbucks is an amazing brand, but it's a tiny little slice of the consumer's life. It isn't about nurturing the human spirit, right? It's about salience coming to mind first, and then it's about delivering on some much more realistic and humble benefits, which I believe Starbucks does deliver on. This positioning fails the 3 C's of positioning, right? Does the company Starbucks deliver on this? No. Starbucks doesn't nurture the human spirit, for F's sake. Does the customer go to Starbucks in order to nurture their human spirit? No, not unless they're on massive amounts of drugs. We're going to Starbucks to get a decent cup of coffee on the way to wherever the hell we're going. Are there competitors out there that do a better job of inspiring and nurturing consumers? Yeah, there's a truckload of companies that do it better. So for all those reasons, it was a mistake, right? A total mistake. In 2002, Starbucks got a new CEO from Reckitt Benckiser, who was meant to be a bit of a marketing genius. So everyone waited with bated breath for the new brand positioning, assuming he was going to fix it. But unbelievably, I mean, incredibly, he sort of said, look, hold my coffee. I can come up with something even more, hallucinogenic than the previous statement. And he came up with a new brand mission, which was with every cup, with every conversation, with every community, we nurture the limitless possibilities of human connection, right? You've got to be smoking crack to think that that is what Starbucks is all about. Nurturing the limitless possibilities of human connection. What? Madness. Total madness. I want to contrast it to my favorite brand of all time, which I talk about too much. I know that. Kit Kat. Do you want to see what good positioning looks like? This is it. First of all, it's on a page. Second of all, there's the 4 distinctive assets, which should be part of your positioning. Next, there's a tight positioning, very similar to McCain, right? Breaks are good for you. And then there's the not changing it for 40 years bit and just doing the same thing over and over and over again. This is humble. This is consumer-based. This is relative differentiation. It's distinctiveness. It is everything that Starbucks is not. And it should shine a light on what you are or aren't doing right or wrong. There is hope for Starbucks, which I do think is a fine brand. Brian Niccol, the new CEO, has arrived. He's made headlines because he's not going to live in their HQ. He's going to telecommute. But more importantly, he seems to be realizing that the brand positioning he's working with is nonsensical and keeps talking about getting back to the brand's core identity. So we live in hope. For you, think about positioning, right? Do you know what your positioning is right now? Is it on one page? Is it based on extensive consumer data? Does it pass the 3 C's test? Are your brand codes, distinctive assets part of it? And have you not changed it in 10 years? I know the answer. So do you. You've got to fix positioning. It's a shit show, and it's super important for a brand's success. Look at the state of Starbucks, right? If you go into Starbucks today, go into this morning, right? Walk in there and just marvel at the madness of it. They've got these tiny little desserts they have to make, right? There's 800 people waiting for a coffee, and there's a poor woman trying to get some pink shit on top of a white thing with sprinkles. And it's like, why are you doing this? And the answer is because Starbucks doesn't know what Starbucks is meant to be all about. And now it's veering left, right, and everywhere else. Number 3. Nike's CEO crisis. It's now getting juicy, right? So here's old John Donahoe, right? Came out of eBay, a bit of a tech genius, tech CEO. He's riding along, looking pretty good here. And then suddenly, as we say in financial circles, the arse falls out of his market. July 2024, massive write-down, alarm bells ringing, Donahoe's gone in the space of a few weeks. So what did Donahoe get wrong? How did Nike go so far wrong this year? Well, the key part is when Donahoe's story began, because Donahoe began life as CEO at Nike in the year 2020. Why is that important? You may remember a little thing called COVID. And during those early months of COVID, everything went bananas, yeah? All the trajectory lines changed and everything else. For example, if we just take e-commerce as a proportion of retail sales in the US, it suddenly took off in a different direction. Now, if you're a change monkey selling books like Martin Lindstrom about how the world is going to change. So let me I'm not having to go at Martin Lindstrom. I am. I'm sure he's a decent person. Martin Lindstrom sells books. And to sell books, you've got to say to people, I've got something that you don't know about, right? So in the case of Martin Lindstrom, he's written a book called Biology. When coronavirus hit, he wrote a book called Biology, the Coronavirus Edition, which is all about how the world was going to change. And for change monkeys like Martin Lindstrom, coronavirus is manna from heaven because we can scare the shit out of people and make all kinds of stupid claims which drive people to buy his airport book. This is what he said during coronavirus, which I found hilarious at the time. This is an actual quote. This change, this is coronavirus, is so profound that one can talk about a global synchronization of human behavior, establishing a completely new universal change of consumer patterns. And I say to Martin Lindstrom, that's horseshit. What happened, which I did write about at the time, is that we all snapped back to the boring brown line of continuity. Sure, things went crazy, but the reason why people were buying online wasn't because of some profound change in global synchronization. It's because no one would let us get out of our fucking houses, so we had to use websites. Once we could get back out into the street, what do you know? We snapped back. Not to where we were in 2018, but certainly where we were going pre-COVID. Now, why is all that important? It's important because if you look at Pearl O'Donoghue, he starts in 2020 just as those lines are all going mental, right? So if you believe in the digital transformation of everything, hoo-ha, then this is proof that the world is about to change completely and we've got to go mental with digital stuff, blah, blah, blah. If, however, you're a bit more of a cynic and more realistic, what you realize is this too will pass. And when it passes, of course, what happens is, hey, presto, we snap back to exactly where we were going pre-COVID. But that's unfortunate for Nike because Nike were planning on a future that never, ever happened, somewhere up in the stratosphere of online shopping. And as a result, they went crazy with D2C. Yeah, they wanted to grow their online digital sales from 26% to 40% of total. I understand why. They want to keep margins. They wanted customer proximity, and they thought everyone was going to shop from their home. But the lesson is always the same. Omni-channel always wins, yeah? Is it going to be shops? Is it going to be D2C? It's going to be a bit of both, and they're going to feed into each other. It's botherism. It's not that difficult to grasp. Anyone who tells you, the high street is dead, it's all going D2C, is an idiot. And so is anyone that tells you D2C is dead and everything's going back towards physical retail. You don't have to kill each other. It's a combination of both. Nike got it wrong. Also, product matters. Famously, they got rid of all the different athletic divisions and started just having men, women, and kids. Everything got very bland. They stopped making high-end prototypes. And the reality is, I wasn't sure this was true, but if you visit Nike at the moment, it's an horrendous, bland sort of quasi-yoga experience. They've taken the heart out of the product. And finally, and we should know better by now, Donoghue and his team went far too short and didn't go long enough with their marketing spend. Now, let's remind ourselves of this one more time. There are two ways you can do this. Let's start with the short, because the short is easier to define than the long. The short of it, according to Field and Burnett, is anything that asks for some form of behavioral response, yeah? Visit the website, buy the product, whatever it might be, okay? It's bottom of funnel. It's usually targeted to a particular segment. It's normally product-based. It can be more rational. And there's loads of these campaigns all the time. At the same time, you've got the long of it. The long of it doesn't really ask anything of you, right? You see the Kaepernick ad. What does it ask you to do? Nothing. This is about changing mental structures within the consumer's brain, driving salience, driving brand perceptions, top of funnel. It's about brand. It's about emotion. And there are less of these campaigns going out. Now, the lesson is, if you understand these two things, first of all, you need both. Yeah, they drive each other. The most important word in the long and the short is and. Then you need to understand the combination that works best for your brand. And it isn't 60-40. It could be 90-10. It could be 20-80. It just depends on the brand and the context you're in. And then you have to understand how they work together, how the long sets up the short, and then the short pays for the long. And if you get the right combination, this beautiful growth wheel starts to turn and you start to make money. Now, here's a nuance that we've only just discovered, again, using the work of System 1. If you understand how this works, you begin to realize long actually delivers short too. Let me explain. So here's the System 1 chart. I'm going to use all their US ads, 45,000 ads. We could do the same for UK. What you've got here is the short on the y-axis. So that's the spike rating. Yeah, that's how well will this ad sell product in the short term. And that dotted line in the middle is kind of the average. Yeah, under it, underperforming, over it, overperforming. On the x-axis, what we've got here is the star rating from 0 to 6. How well will this ad build brand? Now, let's put a single ad in there to illustrate how this works. If this was your ad and you pre-tested it, it's telling you it's average for brand building and it's slightly under the line in terms of short-term performance. Not very good. Let's put all the ads from America onto the database chart. And it tells a very interesting story. So go over to the 5-star things there. So these are the 1% of campaigns that are the very best at building brand. Now look where the pink dots are with respect to that dotted line in the middle. You'll see most of them are in the top half. What does that mean? It means if they're good at brand building, 5-star, they're for the most part also very good at shifting product, the short of it. In fact, 95% of them of the 5-star brand building ads are also above average in short-term product sales. Long delivers short. You can find the same evidence by looking at the shit brand ads, right? The score 1. They're actually mostly beneath the line. So if they're bad at branding, they're also bad at shifting product. So there's a clear correlation here. Long delivers short. It actually gives you sales while it's building brand. That's phenomenal. But there's an asymmetry here. Long delivers short, but short does not deliver long. Let's use the same data in a different way. Now, again, what I've done is I've highlighted all the campaigns that are above average in selling product here. That's all the dots there. If short was good at delivering long, they'd all be down the bottom end there because they're above the line and they should be 4s and 5s in terms of brand building, but they're not. What we get is pretty much a random distribution. So they might be good at short-term stuff, but there's no correlation with what they might do for brand building. So short does not deliver long. So think about this. It's more than just long and short. You need both in the right combination. And crucially, long drives short, but short does not drive long. We are seeing again and again for brands like Nike and other brands a strong overspend on performance marketing, digital marketing, and short performance stuff. Why do we see that? Number one, digital marketers don't really know the full picture. Guys like Donahoe come in, and frankly, they have a bias and a partial view of the world. They don't understand proper brand building. Second, 75% of marketers have no formal training in marketing. What did we expect they were going to do? They're going to get it wrong. They don't understand the field they're in. That's a stunning statistic. So what happens is companies start to cut back on long. They invest more in short because of ROI. For a while, you can live on the fumes of brand building. But at some point, the fumes die. The long stops. The short stops working. Everything stops working. And eventually, we fire the CEO. All right, number 2, M&S returns. So this is me in about 1978. No gray hairs, body fat index of 0.2. I probably have a negative body fat index at this point. I've got like ribs sticking through. And the point of showing you this picture is I was made from M&S, literally, right? So I'm wearing head to toe M&S fashion, and I use that word loosely. And I've been fed that morning, almost certainly, some form of frozen M&S food, along with St. Michael's angel cake or Battenbergs. I am, like most working class kids, with a little bit of ambition from my mum, bred from M&S. It was the strongest brand in the UK. And that came from a very intriguing position, which was value and quality in equilibrium. Now, those two words are very generic, but with M&S, they're very special. When those two are perfectly in sync with each other, M&S has boomed and dominated the UK for almost a century. But when we get to the 21st century, M&S started to get into trouble. It offers grocery and it offers fashion and homewares. And both those sectors changed dramatically. We had Tesco getting stronger and stronger. The German discounters arrived. Waitrose premium offer got better and better. And in food, M&S really found itself trapped in a very small middle. Fashion was even worse. Fast fashion brands like Zara and H&M came along and completely changed the game. And so, unfortunately, M&S was kind of left from about 2008 onwards in a really shitty place. The good news, if you grew up on M&S, though, M&S is back. It's brand of the year by almost everyone's estimation. Kantar, Marketing Week, everyone regards it to be the best brand story of 2024. They've got everything right. They've got two very good marketers, Anna and Sherry, running the two sides of the business with such skill. It's rare to see such a perfect operation. So what have M&S done well? First of all, they got their positioning right again, nice and tight. Second, they've gone back to old advertising, yeah? We have a famous old campaign from about 15 years ago, the food pornography campaign, which if you didn't see at the time, was Fleetwood Mac playing in the background, a close-up of like custard being poured onto an apple pie, and someone in a sexy voice saying, "This isn't just custard. This is Marks and Spencer's custard. Take your clothes off," you know? And it was beautiful, kind of suggestive, but perfectly on position advertising. And to the massive, massive credit of Marks and Spencer, they went back to that campaign and revitalized it. So let's have a look at the campaign. Again, I think it's masterful work. They've actually improved the ad by inserting it into the lives of target consumers.
The next train on platform 1 is succulent M&S Scottish salmon, perfectly pan-seared.
Ultra HD TV with trifle. The best ever from M&S. Fruity compote and tons of vanilla custard.
I just can't wait to get home to
Cauliflower, bubbling in mature cheddar sauce. Classic M&S.
Detroit pizza with smoky sausage and pulled pork bits and a 3-cheese combo.
This is not just salmon. This is M&S salmon, drizzled in a rich hollandaise sauce. Et voila. This is not just food. This is M&S food. Dig in.
It's exactly what we talked about earlier with the work of Andrew Tyndall, right? It's an old ad brought back to life brilliantly, and it's working gangbusters for them. On top of that beautiful advertising revitalization work, we've got excess share of voice. Again, if you're a trained marketer, you know what I'm talking about. There is no more important, abbreviation in the world of marketing than excess share of voice. According to Kantar, M&S have about a 3.5% share of the British grocery food market at the start of the year, but they have 8% share of voice. Take the 8 minus the 4 and you get +4, you get an excess share of voice. And we know with an excess share of voice of +4, we're going to see incremental growth of around about 0.5 to 1 percentage points of market share for every year we maintain that excess. And so spending and investing more money has been part of M&S's success. But intriguingly, they've combined excess share of voice with effective share of voice. What Kantar have also said is not only is M&S spending more money on advertising, because they're doing it so fucking well, they've actually got an effective excess share of voice that gives them more than 20% share of voice. So what are they doing other than spending more money? What they're also doing is they've got better creativity. They've got good mixed media going from everything from TV to TikTok. Very codified work. They use emotion. They're doing pre-testing, and they're using old, consistent ads. So as a result of all of that, M&S are pumping on all cylinders. Mix in the fact that they're always on, that their marketing team is heavily involved in the product. And the best thing I've seen, I talked to both the chief marketers when I wrote an article about them this year. And I said to both of them, so what's the plan for 2025? And both of them said the same thing. Yeah, nothing really. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. So that's the time. That's the signal to buy stock in M&S. We've got a great strategy. We're going to keep doing it because we're not stupid. And we know we're onto a winner. Yeah. I think M&S are on the verge of something very special over the next couple of years because they've got the right marketing, an amazing brand. And I think we should watch this space. All right, which takes us to number 1, and then we'll do Q&A. It has to be, of course it is, Jaguar Reborn. So let's start with it's not even an ad, right? Let's start with the video. The big lad from Boney M is going to come out of the elevator, and we'll take it from there. Well, my goodness, what are we to make of this? Everyone literally has had a point of view on this, haven't they? So let's talk a little bit about what's going on here. So first of all, LinkedIn is just so full of shit sometimes. You could see it happening, right? The general reaction to the initial work and that pre-launch ad was very negative. And then you saw a bunch of people going, if everyone else is zigging, I'm going to zag and make up a bunch of bullshit reasons why it's good. Let's be clear why it's bad. And it very much is bad. And don't get me wrong, I want Jaguar to win. It's just that, unfortunately, this is crap work, right? So when you revitalize a brand, what you do is, and I have done this quite a lot in my career, what you do is you step back into history and understand the essence of the brand, and then you jump forward, in this case, into the electric future, and you present a brand new version of the past. What you don't do is rupture the brand and go completely on a tangent away from where you came from. So a lot of people were saying, Jaguar had to do something. They weren't selling enough cars. They had to do something completely different. No. Otherwise, they could just have created a new brand. One guy was saying on LinkedIn, they could have ended up like Saab, and they had to completely disrupt everything. That's simply not true. There are plenty of examples of brands that have found that revitalization sweet spot and gone into the electric future in a way that still plays the brand strengths. I would nominate Volvo, which still is Scandic and safe and all the other things, even though it's run by the Chinese now, and is doing good numbers in electric cars. They still look like Volvos, yeah? But the ultimate example is BMW's Mini revitalization. The Mini is still the Mini 60 years later. It's just a modern version. And the Mini is a very interesting example because Jaguar is throwing away all of its distinctive assets. The minute you sit in a Mini, the first thing you notice is that big round clock, which these days is a digital, everything and shows you your map. But that's the original round speedometer that was in the first Minis back in the 1950s. You keep your codes because your codes enable you. Sorry, I've got a small dog coming in. Your codes enable you to still link back to the past, but doing it in a modern and exciting way. And I think this is a key point that Jaguar have been missing. Other points about the Jaguar rebrand. Everyone is talking about it is a good thing. There's no doubt it's generated a load of publicity and salience. But I'd like you to imagine a world where everyone is talking about you and also being more positive about you as well. Such things are possible, right? I was really pissed off with the response from the CEO of Jaguar, who said people who didn't like the work were demonstrating vile intolerance. Let's be very clear. You can hate what Jaguar are doing, as I think most people did. It's not to do with racism or homophobia. Right? It's got nothing to do with it at all. It's because the work is poor, right? And I'd actually turn it around and point it back at him. It's diversity isn't showing lots of young, cool people. When you openly suggest you're going to lose 85% of your existing customers and you're happy with that, that's exclusivity, yeah? That's intolerance. That's a lack of diversity. Old, fat, retired accountants that love Jaguar are still part of this world and still deserve to be part of the party. The right message from a properly diverse and inclusive organization would have been, we want to take our old Jaguar customers into the electric future. We also want everyone else to join the party. And I think the problem with Jaguar is they've got an old playbook from the noughties on how to do brand management. And I was part of that movement. We said, to make these guys happy, you have to piss off these guys. That's not true. And it's also not cool. Byron Sharp taught me this, right? He pointed out that when marketers are openly saying, we want to stop these guys from buying our product, they look stupid. And it's very bad for business. And you don't need to do it. We can build brands to everyone. The data now is very clear. And I think, honestly, Jaguar have demonstrated absolutely how not to get it right. Also, we have to point out this thing about copy nothing, right? It's great, except when you start copying stuff, right? The woman with the sledgehammer is a direct take from the Apple ad. And as much as everyone is lauding the new Jaguar prototype, which doesn't have any pedals, by the way, yet, it looks exactly like this is Saab's prototype from 15 years ago, right? It looks a lot like the others. So I don't think they've even passed that test either. My key point on all of this would be Jaguar are fucked, though, because of something no one's talked about. I did off and on quite a lot of work for private equity in my consulting career. I once, and it's so long ago I can tell you about it, I was once asked to go and assess the Watches of Switzerland brand for a big private equity company. And I did it for, large amounts of money, obviously. And I remember ringing up one of the partners in the private equity firm and saying, why do you want to buy Watches of Switzerland? And she said, we don't. We want to buy a hard luxury retailer because we know they're going to grow over the next 5 years. And this is the only one that's for sale. This is a very good insight into something marketers don't realize. The category is often more important than the brand. Now, in the case of electronic vehicles, let's be very clear, the category's fucked, right? Nissan's not going to make it, clearly. Volkswagen might not make it, right? So you're talking about Jaguar in 2 or 3 years coming into the electric vehicle world with 7 dealerships in the UK and a brand new prototype car. I would say the odds are incredibly low because it's such a difficult market where you need huge scale resources. And so I'd suggest what Jaguar are really doing is putting up a big sale sign to their Chinese friends and going, would someone like to buy this hot, sexy brand? Okay, there it is. There's my top 10. Number 10, Coke's AI Turkey, which is really Campaign's AI Turkey. Number 9, liquid death's prevalence is an explanation for marketers who are no longer marketers. McDonald's pricing gotcha demonstrates the impact of proper pricing. Consistency at Christmas is a massive new theme, and it's a sea change in how we do advertising. McCain's IPA win may be the best IPA case study of all time, and it's all about price. Oasis dynamic pricing conundrum shows you what's possible when you get it right. Starbucks positioning is atrocious, continues to be atrocious, and needs to be fixed, and is part of the shit show that is modern brand positioning. Nike's CEO demonstrates all the pitfalls, but predominantly of going too short. M&S is back. It looks great for the rest of the decade. Everyone's very pleased about it. And it demonstrates, I think, what happens when good marketers are given room to do good marketing. And finally, is Jaguar reborn?